here we are back again. I'm Abs of October Red, making sure the microphone's on. I think these microphones they're finished actually. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Like I said, it's Abs of October Red, and we're back for news and reviews. It's been an eventful weekend. I was going to go live. To be fair, I was going to do a watch along, but then it was managing Sky Sports, DAZN, 2 fights on at the same time that I wanted to watch, and then doing the live. It just didn't work. So I thought, nah, I'm not going to do it. Because albeit I didn't have the time schedules, I just made the assumption that the fights, they were going to clash, and they did, with the 2 fights, which was a Tyler Denny fight with Callum Walsh, and obviously the rematch, the anticipated rematch between Troy Williamson, Callum Smith, which is obviously Callum Simpson. He'll kill me for saying that. Callum Simpson gets his belts back in revenge. We'll go on to talk about that in a bit. So welcome to all of you. Then I was like, oh yeah, I'll go live on Sunday. No, because I got carried away doing gardening, so that didn't happen. I was gardening for about 3 hours, front and back. So after that I was like, nah, forget it. So I just chilled out. But we're here on Monday. It's not a live, it's a pre-recorded. I could have gone live. Half of me wants to go live, but my reception's so dodgy, I just thought, forget it. We'll just do a pre-recorded and see how that goes. So welcome to all of you. If you've got past that 3 minutes worth of waffle, we can get straight into it. And I've started to take notes. Number one, because I'm getting old, and I often forget what I'm supposed to say. And number two, it adds a little bit of structure. Usually when I do my conversations, and sometimes with the news and reviews, it's freestyle. All the time with conversations, there's rarely ever notes unless they've got a time schedule, and I think you've got to bullet point these so you don't forget to ask, because I'll go off on a tangent. As you can see, I'm even doing that now. So lots to discuss. Obviously I had Frank Smith on live while he was away on his, I think he may have been on vacation. So very grateful for Frank Smith of Matchroom CEO, for giving me his time. We spoke about obviously where Matchroom's going. Obviously we spoke about the issues with Zuffa Boxing, and he's quite pragmatic about it. He's like, it is what it is. There's another promoter in the game. As you can see, they're not necessarily going with their own rules, as we had a world title shot, which was a non-Zuffa title shot at the head of the bill in Ireland on Sunday at the 3 Arena, courtesy, I think it was Zuffa 10. So like Frank said, he just put it there plain and simple. It's another promoter. Do they think they're going to take over? Yes. Do they usually? No. Obviously what puts them into a great limelight is budgets that we've always seen before. Budgets gives the promoters opportunities to buy fighters. I will sit down with one of the promoters, or with many of them actually, just to see in which the way that they work their businesses. But it looks like as long as you've got that financial backing, basically you can buy who you want. Usually that financial backing will come from the broadcasters. As we know, I think Paramount's invested a really large sum of money into Zuffa, because that's their primary broadcasting network. Obviously watching it on Sky, we get to watch it in the UK, part of your subscription, no extra cost. So when you think about those investments, as long as the investments are there, then the company does particularly well. And I'll talk about this because Sky Sports and Matchroom Boxing, for the boxing part, as they still have other shows on Sky, they parted ways, and DAZN offered a lot of money, gave them a budget where they could invest in fighters, etc., buy fighters, keep fighters, do their thing. Sky did the same thing with Boxer. I don't know, I can't remember the actual figures. Something says something like 68 million. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, which I know you will, because I haven't got those stats in front of me. And what was that, a 3-year deal? So when you have that investment, you've still got to be strategic. And I get it, some way of people's ways of thinking are, I've got 68 million, I've got to spend 68 million now. Say for example, that's the budget. But you can't do that. You've got to think, okay, I've got this amount of money over this amount of years. I want to do this amount of shows. Excuse me. I want these type of fighters. Let's have a look at the market. Let's see what's out there, and let's see what value I can get for more money. I believe in us as a company, so I know that we can grow these fighters. I know that we can market them right. We've got a really good public relations team. We've got all of this stuff. And that is basically how your 68 million, 78, 70 million, whoever the promoter is, that's how it's got to work. Obviously, if you've got your own funds that you can put into it, that comes into the budget as well. And I've got a guest appearance from my cat. So we talk about budgeting. You've got to, just because you've got a certain amount of money, and this is where discipline with money really comes into play. You've got to be disciplined with your money, because as soon as you get it, the quicker you get it, the quicker you'll spend it. So you have to be smart. You have to be, I guess, tight with yourselves. You know, how do you spend the money? The budgeting is strictly for the fighters, for the shows, for the cameramen. It's all part of that business structure. So if you're not good at budgeting, are you then taking that money and spending it on yourself, spending it on things that you're not supposed to be spending it on? Therefore, the business is not getting the full value for money. So I think one of the things about getting into business is being able to structure your budgets, and it's not easy to do. If you're self-made, I guess, you know, it's even more difficult. But if somebody's handing you a lot of cash, you have to be sensible with how you're spending it. So fair enough, Boxer ends up with moving away from Sky Sports. They don't renew the contract. They come to a mutual agreement. Nobody knows what the real thing is, what really happened. However, they moved away from Sky. They get a deal with BBC, which is, you know, it's sporadic. It's there, but it's sporadic. And then recently DAZN picks them up, basically from what Alfie Sharman said to me, on a trial basis. Yes, they have got shows with them moving forward, but it's not like it's a long-term contract with DAZN. It's still almost like on a trial basis. And I think that's based on, can we trust you? You know, are you going to be sensible with what you're doing? And this is where the skill, I guess the real skill comes in. You know, you can talk a good game, but can you build your fighters? Can you sustain your fighters? Can you get them out regularly enough that, so, you know, people are talking about them? And this is across the board with all promoters, and it's a real test. And I don't think it's as easy as we think it is, because we're often saying, oh, the older generation, yeah, they just need to walk away, they just need to leave the sport. And fair enough, to some extent, I agree with that totally. But then when we're trying to, or when the promoters are trying to bring in new fighters, it's like, oh, who's this? No one knows who he is. Oh, he's a bomb, he's this and that. And it's like, hold on a minute, give them a chance to try and build the fighters, because they've got, in some cases, they've got to start from scratch. Not everyone's given ready-made fighters. And I think that's where the expertise, and I will say with Matchroom and with Queensberry, they're able to build fighters from scratch. And I'm not saying that Boxer haven't done that, because they have. They did it with Caroline Dubois. They did it with Adam Azim. They did it with Ben Whittaker. Say what you want. They did that. They did the groundwork. But it's like the only fighter that's left with them out of that now is Adam Azim. So it's like, okay, you can do this, but can you keep them? Everyone can get a boyfriend, everyone can get a girlfriend, partner, whatever it is, but can you keep them? And that's the thing about this industry, where I think sometimes people need to take it a little bit more serious and look at the actual investment and what are we investing in. And it's not just about spending the biggest amount of money on whatever shows, and it's about, okay, we've got to spread this thing. This money's got to last us for a certain amount of time. How are we going to deal with it? And that's when, obviously, speaking to the likes of, say, Frank Smith, Eddie Hearn, not so much Frank Warren, because Frank Warren plays his cards very close to his chest. but they will continuously go on about value, and that is about the return. What am I going to get from this fighter? If I put this amount into that fighter, what am I going to get back? Alfie Sharman said it when we spoke in the DAZN interview. We're running a business. We don't run off emotion. We don't care about feelings. We're a business. So there's that kind of like strategic mindset in, okay, if we invest in you, or what's it gonna do for us? Because at the end of the day, we're a business and we need to survive. So it was quite interesting that Ben Shalom, he seemed annoyed, and he did it in a few conversations by the looks of it, but the one that I took notice of was, my channel IFL, who I've always looked up to and will always support. So shout out to Kugan Cassius and all of those at IFL. Andy McCart did an interview with Ben Shalom, and he was annoyed. I think it was on the premise that obviously Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, whichever way around it, is potentially heading to New York. I've tried to avoid speaking about that because until it's like done, till it's like fight week, till we have the press conferences, I'm still on the back burner with that one. Say what you want, I don't care. There's always so much talk around that fight, and we don't even know what's going on, what date it is, and where it's going to be, like factually. We've even got Dana White putting in his 50 pence saying he knows where everything is, he knows what's going on. So whatever, it's a mess. Whatever. But that was the conversation that Ben started off on. Now, when you think about fights, the UK have done particularly well out of boxing over the past few years, and America seemed to be like fading a little bit. Don't get me wrong, they've got some good fighters over there, but the core business seems to be the UK when it comes to boxing. Even though the UK may be the core of boxing, it's like they still believe that in order to say that you've achieved anything, you have to make a name for yourself in the States. So Eddie, even Frank Warren back in the day promoted a fight out in the US, which I didn't know. I thought Eddie was a pioneer for that, but he's ran with it and he's gone global. Sometimes do I think Matchroom spreading themselves a bit thin? Yes, but that's a conversation that I'll have with Eddie, so he can put me straight on what my opinions are. But they've gone over to America. They've taken British fighters over to America. Ben Whittaker, say for example, did extremely well over there. That was the whole idea. That is what Ben Whittaker wants to do. Ben Whittaker does get more appreciation in the States than he does in the UK. So fair play to him. Go where you're appreciated and not tolerated. Can't argue with that. But remember, Ben Shalom took Ben Whittaker, before he changed over to Matchroom, out over to the States. And it was when they were dealing with, I can't even remember the name of the network now, when they were broadcasting globally the boxer shows, but then it just got cut dead. Everything seemed to go left, and then obviously Ben Whittaker left, no more American shows, etc, etc. But now you've got Zuffa Boxing coming in, and Zuffa aren't necessarily looking to take the fights to the US at this stage. They're building their groundwork. They've got a show in London with Johnny Fisher headlining at the Copper Bosch. Who gave Johnny Fisher that name, Bosch? Was that Eddie or was that Johnny Fisher? Always bothers me, that does. Anyway, I digress. They had a show in Ireland, they had a show in Bournemouth, so they're going all over the place. Boxing is a global sport, so I don't see what the problem is if they're taking some UK fighters and they're putting them out in the US to fight. It happens. They're an American promotional company, so that's what's going to happen, isn't it? It's inevitable. And as Brits, we've done it as well. We've taken fighters all over the world, not from that country if you're going to get really patriotic, but so what? They're out there and they're earning a living. What the issue is, and I'll say this from my personal opinion, when something's like happening to someone else and it's misfortunate for them, and it's like, oh yeah, but it's not happening to me, so I'm like, it doesn't affect me, so I don't really care. When that same situation starts to happen to you, and it affects you, and it affects maybe your income, your personal life, whatever it is, you start to take it personally. And I think that was what we saw, a little bit of a rant and a rave from Ben, like about the Americans taking over and almost like leading towards a dictatorship, where he was saying the boxing board of control needs to get involved and take away fighters' licenses. Huh? When I heard that, I was like, I understand about the Fury Joshua, because 100%, yeah, it should be in the UK, but like I said, what will be with that one. You can't get caught up in that fight, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But because you're like really frustrated about something, you talk about taking away fighters' licenses. The fighters will go where the money is. You know, that's what they're there for. They're there to earn money. They're there for the fame, the glory, and to earn money. It's what they do. They're performers. They're center stage people. So now you're talking about, because they don't do things your way, or, you know, they're signing with a non-English promoter, that we should take away their licenses. Everyone in the comments was like, yeah, War Ben, I love it, you know, go Shalom. And yeah, I love the fact that he's pushing back. But to say that you'd like to take away fighters' licenses, that's their livelihood. So to obstruct them from fighting because you don't like it, that's like really kind of, it sounds a bit like dictatorship like, you know? And that's why I clipped that bit and put it in the conversation with Frank Smith, who said, you know, basically he's being emotional about it. It's competition. He doesn't like it, etc., etc. But we've all got to put up with it, because it's competition. You know, it's competition for all of us. I think Eddie Hearn outright said, yeah, my only competition is Zuffa Boxing. So he's targeting them now. He's got his binoculars, his scope set on Zuffa Boxing. That's him. He's openly admit that. But Ben has reacted in a more emotional way. But I think he did a couple of interviews after. I've watched the one that he did with Andy McCart from IFL, so shout out to them. And Andy brought up like the interview that I had, and he's basically very dismissive, and then said he's got to watch what he says, basically. I mean, yeah, taking away fighters' licenses, that one was like, huh? Very, very dictator, like, you don't do as you're told, I'm going to stop you from earning money. And that's what it come across as. If I'm wrong, you can please correct me in the comments below. So now that we've got that bit out of the way, and thank you for those that tuned into the live, and sorry that it was, the reception's insane. We are going to do a Q&A. Frank is away at the moment, but you have to remember he's got a show in London next week, and I'll be going to the press conference for that. So Frank and I will sit down and have a discussion, and we'll go through all the questions. They're on X, they're there, I can see them, they haven't disappeared. So yeah. So another thing that's come up is Dubois Wardley, set for October, the rematch potentially, and this is a rumoured date, of the 17th of October, allegedly at the Co-op Live in Manchester. And that's created a bit of a conversation on X. I'm in Birmingham, I'm in the middle of London and Manchester. That is where the main fights are, but it's easier for me to get to Manchester because it's quicker to get to, and it's just more convenient. So I'm quite selfish. Like I said, if it isn't happening to me, I'm like all right with it. If it was London, it's London, fair enough. But a few people are like, from London to Manchester, which is centrally where the boys are, whether it's Ipswich, it's south, that may be seen as inconvenient because it's a long trek. I remember when I get back to Birmingham and I'm getting off the motorway, it says 121 miles to London after I've been travelling for what, an hour and a half on the M6 from Manchester. So I can imagine that's really daunting. Then you could say we'll stay in the hotel, but then it's an expense. But hey, a lot of us have to spend expenses, myself included, to travel up and down the country all the time, because seldom are there fights in Birmingham. So it's one of them. I'm looking forward to it. I thought it would be a bit later. I thought that Fabio may have had more time, like with his, I don't know if he's had surgery, what the crack is with him. I just thought that may have been a bit too soon, but look, those guys know what they're doing. And to be fair, Wardley has to take the rematch because We know what it's snakes and ladders with boxing. He's dropped down the snake. If he says, "Oh, I'll fight someone else," he's got to climb all the way back up. He's got to take a bet on himself and go in for the rematch. It was brutal last time. Let's see if he can make it different this time. I backed him to win. And that's why I said I'll never do predictions again. And to be fair, the first minute looked like I could have been right. But yeah, Dubois just took it to him. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. So, but to me, it makes sense, Wardley having that as a rematch. It definitely does. I can't sit down and say, nah, you should just fight someone else. No, he was a belt holder, whether it was emailed, elevated, whatever it is, he had the belt for a bit. And then he lost it very quickly to the Savage. That is Daniel Dubois, that looks like he's been in with Frank Warren in his offices recently. So obviously been talking about that. Sam Jones departed from management from Daniel Dubois. Am I surprised? No, I did laugh about it. I did laugh. I think Sam put it up in his stories, and I put expected lol, something like that. He's bespoke, his niche. And they're going to have certain people around them, and I think with you're going to have personalities that potentially clash, or certain people want it their way, other people's want it their way, and it's like, if it's not my way, it's the highway. So yeah, inevitable is what I'd say about that. But I'm sure Daniel Dubois will be all right with the team that he's got, as long as he keeps on winning. Because Sam Jones is very good at what he does. He does get you fights. He does get you out there. It looks like he's got that Odell Kamara. They were on an airplane the other day. They're going over to Oz to announce that major new signing. Who knows? I've been looking at Odell Kamara and the amateurs, and yeah, he looks tidy. He looks good. And Sam Jones has got an eye for fighters. He does like to pick them and pluck them quite early. So we'll see what happens with that. If more than likely, I'd say he's going to Matchroom. I'm not going to cover the Anthony Joshua stuff. I'll wait till we get more information on that. So Zuffa Boxing, success in Ireland, we covered that. One of the things that we didn't cover is that I think Dana left early. I think Wally Downes put out a tweet that Dana White left the show after 8 rounds of the main event and wasn't at the post-fight press conference. Interesting. Yeah, it's your show. Should you be there to the end? Yes. Do we know what's going on with him personally? No. Did he have to get off for one or another reason? We don't know. Is anyone likely to ask him? No, because when he's challenged, he'll just bite your head off. So he left early. We just have to take it as what it is. Does it look good? No. If Ireland was another successful step in Zuffa international expansion, why wasn't he there at closing time? Like I said, it might not mean anything sinister, but it definitely didn't go unnoticed, because you'd like them to be there. We noticed that His Excellency Turkey wasn't at Anthony Joshua's fight, but it seems as if he's been in America for a while. Obviously he's put out a statement regarding his health. Understandable. He can't be in 2 places at once, and obviously if he's not well, if he's somewhere and he's getting treatment, he needs to stay in one place. As someone that's had my family members pass on from cancer, traveling up and down is not advisable when you're undergoing treatment. So yeah, we'll leave that one there. So we go back to the Ben Shalom versus Zuffa. And yeah, it is developing, and to be fair, like I said, Ben is saying what he feels, but like I said to you earlier, I believe that he's emotional about it, and I understand that, but emotions, you have to learn how to calm them, because it's unprofessional, isn't it, when it starts to seep out. And we've seen it before. And everyone keeps on going back to, when Conor Ben left Eddie, you lot all backed him. Yeah, because I was there for all of the press conferences, the fights cards that Matchroom had after, where Eddie was getting totally obliterated by everyone as he was backing Conor Ben all through what he did. He was like the front man that took the bullets. It's there, go and have a look. So nobody's not saying Conor's entitled to earn more money. People are saying, well, maybe you should have had that private convo with him. Maybe the way that it was dealt with wasn't the best. So that's where you can say, yeah, that's kind of stuck up for him and he did that. I get it. But fighters come and go every day. Look what's happened with Johnny Fisher. Johnny Fisher's gone a ticket seller. Whatever level you believe that he's at, he's a ticket seller and he made the business money. But Eddie turned around and says, I can't offer you that type of money. Like he said, you're working with budgets, you're tight on what you can spend, you're prepared to take some losses. He said the same thing to me when Joshua Buatsi went to Boxer. He said it's the value. There's one thing that they've always like drilled into the subconscious, is one thing that Matchroom constantly goes on about is value. So Ben Shalom concerned about the direction of British boxing? Yes, but when it benefits his business, which is also understandable. He's miffed because CBS has gone. Sam Hickey, who's making quite a name for himself, who seems to be out on every show that Zuffa Boxing are doing, that was one of his as well, or is one of his, I don't know. There's some contractual differences there, but they're still fighting, they're still earning money. And I think when Dana White was asked about that, he says, I ain't bothered about that. I've got a legal team that deals with it. So he doesn't even get involved. He just signs the fighters and they fight. So is he emotional because of that? Yes. Do I understand why? Yeah. But has he got to separate the two? Yeah. He's just got to get really like shrewd with what he's doing as a businessman. Because what's happening with Richard Riakporhe? I mean, Fraser Clark was put out on practically, was it prelims? I'm sure he was on the prelims. He might not. If he wasn't on the prelims, he was on the very first fight of the night. Short notice, last minute. Ben said it was a birthday present, which... Anyway, so, you know, Fraser Clark, yes, he's coming off a loss, but he needs to be kept active. You know, he's a bronze Olympic medalist. Where is his career going? What's the roadmap for his career? What is he doing? Why would he not be closer up? Or they get him a better opponent? Well, you know, fair enough, it's a run for opponent. Fraser's already put his video out and says, listen, I just need to fight. I need to be active. One thing with Fraser, he's always going to say it as it is, as you know, in many of the conversations that we've had. But I would have expected, not from Fraser, because he's just there to fight, but from his team, from his management, from his promotional company, that he should have been in a better fight than that, and he should have been further up the card as one of their lead fighters that have been there from the beginning. So God knows what's going on there. What's happened to Richard Riakporhe? We've seen him doing bits and pieces on podcasts. I haven't watched any of them, I'm sorry. Only the one on TalkSport, because that's the one that caught my ear. And it's like, well, what's he doing? Who is he with? I confirmed that in a conversation that I had with Frank Smith, that they have not had a conversation with Richard Riakporhe. So that leaves potentially, if he's not still with Boxer, which I don't think he will be personally, Zuffa or Queensbury. Queensbury's got all of the heavyweights. He's got a British title belt. Will they want to potentially use him there? Yeah, potentially. What's happening to Jamie TKV? When's he fighting again? Yeah, fair enough. He lost to, you know, Richard Riakporhe, but when's he fighting? What's he doing? You know, there's lots of fighters. Like I said, what's going on with the stable of fighters, or are you just concentrating on certain fighters and everyone's getting left and put to the wayside? And then when these fighters think, you know what, yeah, I've got a better opportunity over here, I'm going to take some extra money. You want to talk about revoking licenses? Insane, in my opinion. Let's have a look. Obviously, the Boxer show we had on the weekend, and it was a fight that I was really looking forward to. I like both guys. Funnily enough, I didn't get to speak to Callum Simpson before the fight, whatever. I did try my best to get him on the channel, but that never happened. Got to speak to Troy. I said to Troy, I said to him, he's gone with Rob McCracken. Rob McCracken is a technician and he thrives on aggressiveness. This is there. That might not be my words verbatim, but that was a conversation I had. I said, I hope you're not overlooking. I hope you're not going to overlook him. And I know Callum Simpson. The way Callum Simpson went out in that fight, And everyone's saying about the excessive like holding and stuff. Win by any means necessary, right? It's a brutal sport. But Callum Simpson, because I thought his engine, his training, this is the test now. It's his durability through his engine, and I thought, wow, he's come out fast. Is he going to be able to keep this up? That was all I said. And every single round he came out. He might have had a couple of rounds off where he took a bit of a back foot, maybe to have a breather, understandably, because he come out 100 miles an hour. But he was so aggressive. He did not let Troy Williamson breathe. Didn't let him breathe, didn't give him an opportunity to think. And every time he tried to think, he'd just clinch him. Like strain the life out of him. I thought it was a good fight. A lot of you were saying that, you know, Simpson was excessive. Simpson did what he needed to do. He wanted his belts back. And you could see he had that venom in him. I always thought that Simpson should be a light heavyweight. I've always said that because he's a big guy. He doesn't look like a super middle, but it is what it is. And he went in there and got the job done. Congratulations to him. Commiserations to Troy, though, because Troy had plans. But in those plans, and when I speak to Troy again, I'll ask him, did he overlook Simpson? Did he overlook that hunger, that drive that he had to get those belts back? The weight, you know, what Troy had been like saying about him, and he was just like, yeah. Did Troy not take him serious enough? That's the question that I have with that one. But like I said, it was a great fight. I knew it would be. You know, commiserations to Troy and congratulations to Callum. Hamza Shiraz is a name that Callum and Ben Shalom have been calling out for Callum for ages now, a couple of years at least. So yeah, that's the fight that they want. I think they're obviously looking at getting him into certain rankings, so it becomes an unavoidable fight. Obviously they'll be salivating at the lackluster performance that we had from Hamza the other day, but reading in between the lines, I don't think he was okay going in there. Is any fighter okay? No, but he really probably wasn't okay going into that fight. I'm sure it will come out one day, but that was a particularly lackluster performance. You can argue and say, oh, he didn't step up because of the opponent. Nah. Somebody said to me, I can't remember which fighter it was, or I might have watched it, so it might not have even been a conversation with me. They said that you have to treat every fight that you have like it's a world title fight, because there's always that risk, there's always that danger that you can lose. So with his lackluster performance, I'd probably say something probably wasn't right in there. Maybe if I speak to Hamza, I'll get to ask him and speak to him myself, or his coach Andy Lee, because Andy Lee was more of a, almost like a fatherly figure in there, just checking that you all right. Like, yeah, like not saying anything but saying a lot. And it was more like welfare rather than, you know, oh, you've got to do this or whatever, which he did give at times. So yeah, moving forward, then I think for Callum Simpson, he's got his revenge. He can just carry on with his career. So great fight. We'll see what happens with him. Jarrell Miller, and that's something that I probably should have spoke about before actually, because he was down. Well, the WBA, I'm trying to get my head around this. He was out there in the public from the WBA that he should have been, his last fight was for an eliminator, but then the WBA have said that it was done in error. How's that work? So to be fair, I should have asked Frank Smith about that, but I'll speak to them lot next week. Hopefully speak to Eddie next week as well and find out what's going on with that. So Jarrell Miller is publicly now gonna legally challenge the WBA, which, to be fair, if it's in writing and it was out there, yeah, I would as well. But it's weird for them to like U-turn and say that they made a mistake. That was really odd. But yeah, that's very, very strange. We've covered MVP and Matchroom working together. The one thing that I was trying to get at with Frank Smith before my reception kept on getting interrupted is the MVP have acquired PFL. Yeah, so PFL are obviously the mixed martial arts, etc. a competitor, if you want to look at it, in the same business line as the UFC. So with Eddie, with his UFC fighters, are they going to then start up a league of their own? Speculation, putting 2 and 2 together, probably 4.5. We don't know, but we'll see what happens with that. That was one of the questions that I wanted to ask. So then to sum up then, Dubois, Wardley, we're doing it again. I'm not covering anything on the Joshua Fury stuff. Zuffa, we covered the Ireland show. We covered the Boxer show. We covered Ben Shalom and Zuffa. Obviously, Sam Hickey, somewhere in the, what do they call it? The Bermuda Triangle, when it comes to Ben Shalom and Zuffa Boxing. Simpson and Williamson, we covered that. Jerome Miller, we kind of jumped over that really. Matchroom, MVP, PFL, we need to find out some more details on that. And yeah, I think that's it really. So we've got the Terra Moana show, and shout out to Tony giving Eddie some banter in the press conference today. I really enjoyed that. So, oh, sorry, news has just popped up. Jeff Bezos looking to buy Liverpool FC. I don't know if that was right, but whatever. That's just popped through on the news. Could be wrong. My eyesight's not what it was. So yeah, we've got that show. Then the week after, we've got the Matchroom show. Like I said, I'll be covering, going down to the press conference of that, potentially doing a watch along for that on the weekend. The week after, hopefully, I'll be at the Moses Atama fight. If not, it will be a watch along. I like watching Moses Atama fight live. I think he's, at the moment, I'd say he's my favourite fighter to watch live. This is going to be, I think this is going to be a good fight as well. What's happening the week after that? We're going into September, aren't we? Can't remember. The schedule's out there somewhere. If I'm not at the fight night, there will be watch-alongs, me and my dodgy reception. Please feel free, guys, to put some comments. Anything that you've taken from this video, not taken for it, whatever it is, put it in the comments. You know what I like to respond to the comments anyway. So we'll catch you on the other side. And as we say, I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything else. Let me just quickly have a look on X to see if anything's come up. Oh, Ade Oladipo's getting ripped on Twitter at the moment. Bless him. He's a lovely guy, but people like to jump on people, don't they? Oh, don't know what he's on about. Let's have a look. Yeah, the one thing that I will do next time I speak to DAZN, because I didn't do that last time actually, is to talk about them, how they're going to keep on doing this in the market where people are paying subscriptions and they're not paying pay-per-view for boxing. What are they going to do to address that? Because really, when you think about it, what they should have probably done is crept up the subscription till it was like maybe £20 a month, say for example. Not 25, £20 a month, people can think, yeah, maybe, but then didn't charge extra. But charging a subscription and then charging pay-per-view on top, it's getting a bit out of control, especially if you've got other networks. Well, you have got other networks that are broadcasting it for subscription only prices. Yeah, there's going to have to be some give there. That's going to cause problems for them, no matter how many boxing promoters you've got on your platform. Because if I was Paramount, I'd be looking to sneak in behind there and try and get some deals with key promoters. So you've got the boxing shows on, there's no extra subscription fee or pay-per-view free. Shout out to Ring IQ Boxing Talk as well. He took the conversation that I had with Frank Smith and put out his own version, what he thought, and I'm inclined to agree with him. So if you want to head over to Ring IQ Boxing Talk, have a look at one of his videos. I think it's the one where Clarissa Shields is on the cover. So yeah, I can't see anything else. Just, you know what X is like, it's just everyone slagging each other off, isn't it? But listen, you take care, have a fantastic week, enjoy the heat that we've got, because we could have an extremely cold winter because we've had this beautiful hot summer. Look after yourselves, and as we say at October Red, stay ready.